Hello, women of the world. My name is Manisha. I'm 43. I'm single. And for as long as I can remember, it's always been my biggest dream to get married and have children. But sadly, my path has not unfolded that way. I remember when I was a teenager and I went to middle school and I was so excited to date boys, and that didn't happen. And then I became an adult and I was single forever, all through college and into my late 20s. And I was so embarrassed to even tell anyone. And I felt like something was horribly, horribly wrong with me, that I must be super ugly and no one wanted to date me. And that's why I was single. And then I did all kinds of things to try to find my true love. I did a 3-year spiritual program with really intense psychological work where we went 5 weekends a year to process and reflect and see what we needed to change about ourselves. And I thought by shifting myself and becoming less needy, I would attract my husband. And I didn't meet someone then. And then finally, I got so depressed. I felt like if I didn't meet someone within the next 6 months, I was just going to kill myself because it just felt so important to me. And so I decided to hire a dating coach. And that was actually incredibly helpful. Her name is Jess McCann, and she wrote a book called You Lost Him at Hello, all about using sales to date. And what I learned through that experience is that I was not ugly, but perhaps I was just a bit choosy. And so she helped me start going on online dates. She took really great photos of me. And what happened is I started meeting some people I liked who weren't interested in me, some people who I was interested. They were interested and I was not interested. And then every now and then we were both interested. And I started having some little romances, but nothing really went further than a day or 2 dates, to be honest. Then I moved to San Francisco from New York. I thought maybe it was where I was that was the problem. Also wanted nicer weather. And I really set out to meet the one. I read the book Calling in the One. Every single day I would get up, meditate, read a chapter, do the exercise in the book, and then just swipe, 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 swipe. And I just determined I was going to meet someone every single day. In fact, I would even message every guy and say, hey, do you want to meet up tonight? And I went on a lot of dates. And in the new year, after about just 10 days of doing this, I met my first boyfriend. And it was amazing. At that point, I was 39, and our relationship was just everything I ever envisioned love was going to bring for me, that it was filling this hole in me. He just thought I was wonderful. I thought he was wonderful. I was in such bliss. And then about 3 weeks into our relationship, I discovered that he had a serious alcohol addiction. Nevertheless, I stayed for a year. I became really close to his child. It was illuminating and painful. And somewhere along that journey, my idea that there was this one true love that I was supposed to find started to evaporate. I knew that the idea of true love was a bit odd. I believe in science and logic, and yet I still really felt like maybe there was this magical, mystical one, and really that once I healed myself, he would magically appear. And I just felt like there was something wrong with me, that it wasn't happening. When I broke up with my boyfriend, that idea of there being one true love started to evaporate. I ended up spending a lot of time with my mom, and that was a really beautiful healing experience for me and for her. And for a while, I just didn't want to date anyone at all. To be honest, I had a couple flings during that period, mostly with younger guys, but I was just going through what I was going through, and then I went through a long period of not dating. And then I really got my act together, so to speak, and I said, I am going to go for it and meet this guy. And what I'm going to do is I am going to go on 90 dates in 90 days. And at the time, I decided I'm also going to move to the city that has the highest likelihood for single women in their early 40s to meet men who are single and well educated. I read a book called Datanomics, and it said that Austin, Texas had the highest ratio of single educated women in their 40s, or single educated men to single educated women. So there were less educated women than educated men, which is supposed to improve your marriage chances. So I went to Austin. And in addition, I thought I should be doing inner work at the same time that I was doing external work. So I moved into a Zen center, and I lived in a Zen center. I meditated 9 or 12 hours a week as part of my commitment for living there. I met with a Zen teacher to talk about what I was experiencing. I had an accountability partner, and I went on 90 dates in 90 days. I met some people I liked who didn't like me. I met some people who I didn't like, they didn't like me, etc. All the combinations. A couple times, we both liked each other, but it would really only last more than 2 or 3 dates. And at the same time, I kept on talking to teachers, talking to friends, getting this really deep work to try to understand what is it with me that I'm not meeting my partner. And I didn't meet someone, and I think what I learned was that what I was looking for was kind of rare. There were a lot of things I didn't expect that would make me not feel attracted to someone. Like, could be something like they were in support of the bombing of Hiroshima because they thought the Japanese had it coming. I could just never date someone like that. I felt like I could never date someone who was really into guns, things that I didn't have on my list but made me very uncomfortable. And, even some people who thought they were the next coming of Jesus Christ. And I just, didn't feel like dating someone who held that belief about themselves, so to speak. And and then I met a guy that I liked and I thought it was going well, but then he just didn't really seem excited about seeing me again. He rescheduled our date, and so I didn't really follow up, yada yada. So then I decided to leave Austin. It was just too hot for me. It wasn't working in terms of the data analysis I had done. And I started thinking about, where do I most want to live in the world? I run an ed tech company. I work remotely. And I started to feel kind of jealous of my friends who were going to Europe. So I decided to go to Croatia. Along in this period, I also broke my tooth and decided to get dental care there. Long story. I went to Croatia. I thought I wasn't going to make any friends. And then almost immediately, I met one of the best friends of my life and discovered this incredible digital nomad community in Split, Croatia. And started to become just over flooding with this appreciation for my life and what it was, even though before I had been so sad. I was single and didn't have kids. At the same time, going back to my hometown, I saw that many of my friends who had gotten married at the time I wanted to were going through divorces, lots of very painful situations where they had kids, they were coming out of that marriage and finding someone new. So that really changed my perspective, because before I felt like they had it all figured out and I didn't. So I went to Croatia. It was really interesting being in Croatia and Greece and Spain and kind of seeing how men interacted differently with men there. And I started dating a bit more. I still didn't really have the success that I wanted. And I find myself today back in the US. I am staying with my mom in Ithaca, New York, before I head back to NYC, where I lived for 15 years before I moved to San Francisco, and which is often known as a place where it's hard for women to meet men, but at the same time, there are a lot more options. So I have been swiping in Ithaca. I have not really found anybody that is of interest to me in any remote way. I also feel like maybe I'm not giving people a chance, but then ultimately what the major feeling I'm having right now is that I'm just not trying hard enough. I somehow have had so much failure in this department, having seen dating coaches, read all the books. I also listened to a wonderful dating podcast called Girls Gotta Eat. I find it really funny, and actually one of the girls just met her partner. I've gone to therapists, I've seen dating coaches, and all the work I've really invested and given it my all and reflected on myself and been willing to date people who weren't necessarily my type. In Austin, I dated almost anybody. And so I find myself at 43, I have gone to a doctor, I'm still capable of having children, and I'm thinking really long and hard about having kids on my own. I was raised by a single mom. It was not easy for her. It's always been a really deep dream of mine that I would make babies with someone that I love. And I know that that's still possible for me and my body, But, it's time is still ticking, and I don't know that I want to give up on that dream. And so now I have a feeling like a trade off. Like, either I meet someone and have kids with them, or I don't. And maybe they don't even, maybe it's hard for them to have kids too, because sometimes, men's sperm motility is not working so great. There's all kinds of problems in that department. But then on the other hand, it would be wonderful to make a child with someone I love. And spiritually, I feel this calling towards it still, like that's supposed to be part of my destiny. And I come from a long line of single mothers. My father abandoned me. My mother was raised by a single mom, and then a very broken household. My great grandmother before her became a nun. I think the one before that was a single mom. So my aunt was a single mom, and I feel like maybe I can heal all these generations in the past. Almost that's what I meant to do. So it's a lot of pressure. But I'm here today because I am thinking about this idea of having a baby on my own, but I also just like really want to give it one more try. And I've had difficulty motivating myself. So I feel like if I start this podcast and commit to talking to all of you today and take you with me on my journey, that will inspire me to keep going, because it's always easier when you're doing something for someone besides just yourself. So today I'm committing to come here every day and focus on that dream of finding a life partner that I can have children with and see what happens. So thanks for listening, and tune in tomorrow to see what's next.